So welcome everybody, and thank you so much, as I said, for joining this short session today. Um, we have a wonderful opportunity just to spend some time today. Well, I have a wonderful opportunity to talk with Carin about, a fascinating topic in terms of behavioural change and understanding habits and how we establish habits, the science of habits, the backbone of habits, what's necessary to change our behaviour. So we've got a wonderful opportunity today to reflect around that and do that. So thank you for joining this session. My name is Grant. I'm one of the Wellbeing Coaches here at Wellbeing People. And Wellbeing People is an organisation, if you're unaware, that focuses on helping people improve their performance, whether they're individuals, teams, organisations. We have a vision to empower as many people as possible to live their very best life for the longest. Today, as I said, is a wonderful opportunity to pause and come up for a bit of air. And it's not just me giving you permission to do that. Hopefully, you're going to do that yourself as well and put away those distractions and focus in just for the next 40 to 45 minutes where we have an opportunity to reflect and understand a little bit more. I'll allow Carin to introduce herself in a moment, but just with regards to housekeeping today, this session is being recorded, and it will be available for you to access as a recording to rewatch and to perhaps share with your colleagues or your friends or your family or whatnot. So it will be recorded today. Feel free to utilize that chat function to share your thoughts, share your ideas. Hopefully this is a non-judgmental space. We all approach change differently, and we all have different obstacles that we need to overcome in order to sustain certain behaviors. So please feel free to share lots of answers to lots of questions that we're going to be posing, not just each other, but we're going to encourage you to share your answers to those questions as well. I think that's about it with regards to if you have any questions, of course, utilize the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen. Share any specific questions that we're going to be discussing today. I think I'll hand over to Carin. Just give us a little intro about yourself.
Yeah, well, thanks, Grant. Well, you've heard already, my name is Carin and I work here with Grant at Wellbeing People. And of course, we're going to talk about habits and habit resets today. It's one of our favorite topics. It's the thing that we do most here is try and empower people to take charge and be really clear on what it is that matters to you in your own well-being. So we're going to get to the bottom of habits, and really exciting to talk about this at this time of year, I think, Grant.
I think you're right. I think it's I mean, we spent we decided to connect the other day that we were on a little call, and we were like, okay, well, let's talk about the session, the webinar, and lo and behold, of course, an hour passes, and we've just been spending lots of time just getting lost in talking about habits. So, especially about habits at this time of year as well. Just before we move forward with the session, Carin, I'm going to invite everybody to as we journey through this conversation today. I'm going to invite you today to identify perhaps a habit that you want to start, stop, or continue. Because if you want to continue that habit, it's a winning habit for you. But identify a habit that you would like to start, stop, or continue, and try to be precise. Try to really kind of dive in a little deeper, and not just saying things, oh, I want to be happier, I'd like to develop this habit of being a little bit happier at work or happier away from work. Try and be very specific with the habit that you want to implement, whether that's something to start, something to stop, and something continue. Because as we journey through today, and when we pose questions and when we talk about habit change and establishing habits, ideally we'd like you to keep that forefront and center so that you always have that sort of focus when we're having our discussions today. So write it down wherever you are, perhaps a sentence, a concise and clear sentence about what exactly is the habit that you want to implement. And so just to continue, feel free, give me a high five, actually. Have you all done that? Have you all got a habit that you want to implement? Give me a high five. That's a virtual high five, not a real high five. There we go. And if you feel brave, and if you can kind of give us a strap line about your habit that you want to implement, share it in the chat function so that people get a sense of where people are at. It might be a habit around movement or nutrition or mindset. It might be a habit around other lifestyle habits or something else. So share in the chat function if you want to. We can bring it to life a little bit more in that chat function. So let's jump into it, Carin, because we love having a little chinwag about this, and it's lovely to see them all dropping in now because we can see this, right?
Yeah.
And I think actually, if I share, I won't share it, but I'll.
Do you know, I'm reading through your comments now, and lots of great things. I love the, stop binge eating in the evening. That's, that's a great one. It can be a tricky one to break actually. So I'd really suggest, looking at the triggers around that behavior. So if you can change up, what you're doing in your day, that might have an impact. If you tend to sit down in front of the TV to binge on your snacks, try doing something different. But yeah, loving seeing all the comments coming in. Love this one about working from different locations. That's a brilliant way to what we're going to talk about a bit today, start encouraging your brain to think differently, right? Yeah, excellent stuff. Keep your comments coming in.
Yeah. Keep reflecting, keep writing it down. I mean, it's essential for learn. It's essential for progress, essential for growth. Just to understand something about our habits at this time and of course where we want to get to. I'm just taking a moment just to look at the webinar poll because we asked which area of your well-being needs the biggest reboot according to you, and the majority of people, well, they're all pretty close, aren't they, but leading the way is mindset, mental and emotional resilience, and sleep, rest and recovery. And I noticed in the chat actually somebody did put taking time to rest is a habit that they want to implement, which would be lovely. And great awareness, by the way, to notice that you actually do need to come up for air. Wonderful stuff. I guess I'd like to start really by asking you, Carin, and perhaps feel free to chip in with your thoughts in the chat function. Why is it around about this time of year in September? Why is that perhaps a useful time for people to get back into starting a new habit, for example, Carin?
Yeah, so many different reasons for this. I'd like to start out before I get into the details around this time of year and habit change and reset, is that can be really September can be a really stressful time for some people. There's that shift from, going from holiday mood, maybe being a bit relaxed, eating and drinking differently, your routines are different, kids are off school, and now we're back into the swing of all of it. And for some of us, like myself, even though I absolutely love being on holiday and letting go of some of all the things that I do normally, I do secretly really thrive and look forward to this time of year when, everything is in place and I'm back on with my routine. So for some of us, we really thrive on that feeling. So that's kind of, what we call like the fresh start effect. Our brains love having those milestones and it feels like a new beginning, right? So September can really feel like a new beginning, and that's how it feels for me. We're back on we're sort of starting over, a clean slate almost. You get your nice new notepad and things ready for school and work. So that can really impact on our brain, making you more receptive to start doing new things. And there's loads of other reasons why September can be a good time. And it links into the fact that we've been on holiday and we've had a break. And those sort of things that disrupts our normal habits and our normal routine, they can kind of happen any time of year. It can be, you starting a new job or going through some big changes in your life. But we tend to all, have a big change up over summer. And it just helps with that neuroplasticity because your brain is already finding new ways and changing up and doing different ways. And it just means that you're really receptive to start breaking in some new habits because your brain is already thrown off course a little bit but with its normal habits. And so you're ready to start forming some of the new paths in your brain, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. It was interesting. I'm just looking at one of the points in the chat where somebody's mentioned it's a historical link of a reset in September from the old school years. From when we
Absolutely,
kind of
yeah.
step back into that school routine. I'm always fascinated because my background is, as you know, Corin, but my background is health and fitness. I spent 15 years in health and fitness, and you begin to notice these patterns of when people are perhaps a little bit more consistent with their exercise
Mm.
and less consistent with their exercise. And so we tend to see within health and fitness, or I tended to notice that come September, there was a kind of a momentum to step back into physical activity around that
Mm.
time of year. And it always reminds me of the New Year's kind of position of resolutions. Well, why is it a good time? Is
Yeah.
we're through it in terms of school years. We're through that. It's a new year, new me, and all that jazz.
Yeah,
And it's interesting.
it's the
We-
same feeling, isn't it? It's the
Yeah,
starting over, it's a fresh new start. But the good thing about September, and it doesn't bring as much pressure and stress that we might find in the new year. And also, when you think about it, perhaps, and as somebody mentioned in the comment as well, the seasonal changes, the changes in weather, there's a lot of those things of easing ourselves into autumn, perhaps, a more focused but also slower pace. We don't feel like we have to rush around and do as many things. And when you think about it as well, in September, hopefully, we've got a lot of sunlight to boost us. We might have been away on holiday. We've done lots of fun, nice things. We've been outdoors. We've just enjoyed things a little bit more. And then come September, we feel a bit re-energized and ready to start off by things. But quite often in January, we might be really drained from all the stress that leads up to
yeah,
Christmas and the overindulgence and the partying and all of the things that go, all the wonderful things that come with Christmas and the holiday season, but that can also, just really be quite draining. And then we get to January and we think we're going to just feel all energetic and ready to go, which is not always the case, is it?
yeah, yeah. I agree, and then though that it makes me wonder of kind of the motivations for consistent behavioral change that we might see in September or in the new, I mean, in the new year, as you mentioned, the overindulgences of Christmas and the change in our routines, the later nights, the change in our diets, all of these things contribute. And then suddenly our motivation might be that I feel a little bit guilty. I feel a little bit ashamed for my overindulgence. So that might motivate me to go and take this change. But then I'm sure many of you are aware that after about 6 weeks in the new year, it starts to drop off a little bit, right? Our consistency starts to drop off. So the more change that we make, we feel less guilty, we feel less shame. So there's slightly less motivation to move forward with my behavior change. And so I drop off that behavior change. And that's where we need a bit of a springboard. And that's why I think September is an optimal time to use as a springboard to start planning, to start practicing even the smallest habit change, because it can
Yeah.
drive that consistent and sustainable changes.
It's
And
interesting. Sorry,
this
Grant, I'm
go
just
for it.
jumping into it. It's interesting. I just really pointed out that word that you're using around shame and those sort of, and there's quite an interesting narrative around how we feel about, our activities and behavior and our eating habits and things like that. So just wanted to pick you up on the use of that word and how you see that. What's your own experience? How do you feel coming into September after your holiday?
Well, I think I tend not to. I see. I think when it comes to behavioral change, sustaining that change, one of the most important things, and what I've learned over the years is um, to be self-compassionate and understand that relapse is part of change, right? It's not gonna, I'm not gonna ride this wave that I have of motivation forever. Motivation comes and goes. We'll kind of get onto that in a moment, but how do I feel about September and my change moving into September? I think this is an optimal time for me, myself, to begin to refocus my attention on some specific goals and highlight, not just what those goals are, and so the direction which I want to travel, but also what's going to give me the biggest bang for my buck to just take one step towards that goal. And that's why I use the word, September as a bit of a springboard
Yeah.
to kind of take a run up to the the changes that are going to happen, in the month leading up to Christmas and New Year.
Yeah, and that's a really good point as well. And somebody just put a comment in the chat there saying that it's really important to make realistic changes, and that's what we are all about, not to ask too much of yourself. That's often what happens at New Year, that we set ourselves these enormous big, everything's going to change now, because of perhaps that sense of guilt that we might feel around the overindulgence. Not that we're, encouraging those thoughts, but it's quite a human feeling, isn't it? That we just think, right, this is it, feel really bad now for all the eating and drinking. Everything's going to change, and we set ourselves really big goals and targets to hit, and we quite quickly realize that we can't keep that up. So that's another good thing of September being a bit of a springboard, because hopefully we feel a bit more energetic at this time of year. And yeah, you're right in the comments that we don't need to make those big, massive habit changes or have these enormous goals that we're trying to reach, but really implementing some small things. So what's the first thing you were looking at reintroducing or perhaps stepping up on, Grant?
Well, I thought you were asking everyone, but why not
Oh
ask?
yeah, indeed, everyone, not just
Yeah,
you.
not
Please
just me.
share in the chat function.
Yeah. So what's the first step I need? I mean, for me, planning is crucial. So creating an environment that gives me no alternative but to just jump into the habit or continue with the habit is key. So for me, I know that maintaining a regular activity routine for me is critical, not just for how I feel about myself, but also for my psychological well-being, my emotional well-being, and
Mm,
managing kind of stress and those sorts of things. So I plan that and use that as a useful tool. So the first step I tend to look at is how I plan my week with regards to my physical activity, and I'm kind to myself. As I said before, you know, life happens, right? Life gets in the way of my plans, and I acknowledge that. And so if something jumps in my way, I just go, okay, it's fine. Sometimes I have to
yeah.
prioritize work. Sometimes I have to prioritize me. For now, I have to prioritize work or change. And then I'm kind to myself. I'll just squeeze it in and have a kind of makeup day, which is make up the next
Oh
day.
yeah.
And I'm just kind to myself in that respect. But I think
Yeah.
that's crucial when we move towards understanding a little bit more about habit change and how we sustain it. Is saying
Yeah.
there's a level of acceptance that my life will be filled with ups and downs. Give me a high five. Are you going to experience stress this much or this much today? Absolutely. We're going to be exposed to it every day. So having that
Yeah.
self-compassion and curiosity, I think, is important to just say to myself, okay, so it's okay. Be curious about how you feel and be curious about those habits, and
Yeah.
see where you go.
That checking in with yourself as well is so important, something that we often forget. And also I want to highlight what you were saying there about, the kindness and compassion. For me, it's always a good reminder that, my health and well-being is a lifelong journey. It's not a race to a quick
Mm.
fix result that's going to come in a couple of months or so. And so we're taking that viewpoint. It's okay to, have a day or a couple of days off, or,
Yeah,
not feel up for it or forget or whatever it is. But as long as we're clear on what it is that we want to do, we can start, as you were saying, creating an environment that's going to help us do that. So for instance, I think I told you before, I notice such a big difference when I'm keeping up with my hydration, and that's something that I've let slip a bit over summer. And it's difficult to get back into it by just saying I'm going to start drinking more water. So I do lug around my 2 litre bottle of water with me, and having on my desk as a visual reminder to drink more water.
yeah. Well, a couple of things jumped into my brain while we were talking there. The first is, that having the prompt and the cue is very, very important, isn't it? To dive into the change, to make that change, but also to understand what are some of the common barriers to you making that change.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
so, let, so
definitely.
let's ask everybody here, and hopefully you can join in. Just reflect now. What are some of your common barriers or obstacles to you consistently, engaging in your habit, your new habit? Share with me in the chat function. Take a moment just to reflect. What gets in your way?
Other people was a quick one there.
I noticed that one.
Indeed. those things that just get in the way. But it's a really good reminder, actually. And I see it all the time within work, talking to people about habits, because we often say, oh, I'm gonna start eating differently, I'm gonna start eating healthily. And then you don't consider the fact that you've got three kids and a partner that have all got their ideas of what they want to eat and do, and it can be really, that can be a huge obstacle to implementing some of those things. And it's easy to say, you have to think about yourself or do what's right for you, but sometimes it's not as easy as that. So
Yeah,
it's crucial to just have that awareness of what might get in the way of you actually being able to do this.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. It makes me think about having plenty of intention but little action. So,
Yeah,
so
exactly right.
give me a raised hand. Do you feel that often you have loads of intention? Do we all know so much that we don't do nowadays? We know so much, don't we? Do we have plenty of intention but little action, or is it the opposite? Do you have loads of action, and so you get up, you do stuff, you're very very busy every day, but then you get to the end of the day and go, oh, okay, not really. I feel like I've been busy but not really effective today because I haven't got that direction.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
it jumped out at me when someone put
Sounds
in,
familiar. Yeah.
it feels impossible to start.
Busy fools. Somebody put
Yeah,
in
if
the
someone's written
comments.
here, they
Indeed.
feel impossible to start. And sometimes, when it comes to things like procrastination, that's the mindset. It has to be perfect. The place has to be perfect. Everything has to be in place in order for me
Hmm.
just to take that one step forward. It's never going to be perfect, is it? There's never going to be an ideal time for you to get started.
No, and
The
we
key
all
is just to
do that,
start.
don't we? And that's why, Monday is such a great day to to
Yeah,
start over with things. We'll just say, do you know what? I'm just gonna go all out this weekend, and on Monday I'm starting over, and it's
yeah.
always
I
yeah,
mean,
having that reminder, but also, recognizing. I think I love this saying, with the procrastination, as you mentioned, to begin. Sometimes you have to sort of procrastinate the procrastinating and just not overthink it and just do something rather than nothing. But we've talked a little bit about obstacles that get in the way and have a think about, your barriers to actually being able to do what you've set yourself out to do. Is it actually realistic? But what sort of components do we need to consider when it comes to actually being able to action all of those great intentions?
well, there's loads, isn't there? Really, I think the one
Yeah.
to jump out, we need to understand the importance of prompt and a trigger so if I want to create a habit of drinking more water, it's critical and crucial, I'm sure you can agree, to have the water or the bottle of water or a glass of water accessible for you to drink. Because if it's not there, it's not going to happen. So without the trigger, that achieving the action or getting across that action line is going to be virtually impossible. So understanding whatever your habit is that you want to begin to implement, if you want to start a new habit, we have to create an environment that makes that habit accessible for us. So if I want to create a habit of beginning a mobility routine in the morning, I want to kind of dedicate 10 minutes of my morning routine to mobility or to just physical activity, whatever it looks like to you. What can I put into place to trigger that behavior in the morning? Now I can kind of give myself an alert or give myself a great thing to do is just to prep it the night before.
Yeah.
Get
Yeah.
rid of that decisional balance. So I don't have to make those decisions in the morning. I can just get up and do it. So creating an environment that gives you no alternative but to access your habit is a great place to start. So think about the triggers, and triggers always a useful place to start. Um,
I'm also thinking things like you've mentioned several times about scheduling things in. Uh, and that's a really key one for me. And I notice it very clearly when it comes to exercise. If I block the time out in and planned it ahead for the week in my calendar, I will do it. But if it's not there, I don't have time to do it. It's it's very simple.
yeah. I tend to, I mentioned I do that my planning at the start of the week or typically on a Sunday. I'll just kind of come up into the office, just reflect for 20 minutes or 30 minutes, just look at my diary for the week, and I'll tend to give myself a mission of what's the best thing I can do this week
Mm,
to ensure that I sustain my habit. Um, how can I prioritize my well-being away from work? So what's the one or two things that I'm definitely going to do this week away from work that's going to improve my happiness and my wellness? And what's the one or two things I'm definitely going to get done at work? So that
yeah.
one thing, what can I do? So that creates a level of importance, and that's crucial for change, right? Because if it's not important to you,
Mm,
you're like
absolutely.
you're likely not to be invested in moving forward. And that's why connecting with your why, and we talk about it a lot, don't we, Karen, when we're talking
Yeah.
to individuals and businesses about changing their habits. Connecting with your why is crucial. It gives you an overarching purpose and directs your behavior. And that's why motivation, again, is key, right? Give me a high five. Is motivation a bit of an obstacle and barrier sometimes for you to sustain your habit? Because motivation is very, very complex, right? There's a lot.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I'm loving keeping that. Yeah, the why. Let's definitely get into that because I think that's absolutely crucial starting point. But I'm loving the comments, and I'm just scrolling through all of your chats here, and there's some great advice and supportive comments coming in here as well. And just things like somebody's pointed out here, finding a form of exercise. So when we're talking about exercise, finding something that you love doing, and I think this really connects with your why as well, because one of the things we often get wrong when it comes to creating habits is that we might look at what other people are doing. We might see friends, family, media influencers, celebrities, and we think they look like they've got it all sorted. I want, some of that. I want to look like that, be like that, have that lifestyle, whatever it is. And and then we try and go and do their workout or their diet or whatever it is, and it just doesn't align with us.
Mm.
It doesn't connect to the why, and even though you think you want those extrinsic values, it doesn't have any meaning to you, and so you're very unlikely to stick to it. So
Yeah.
finding what really is that connects to you, and then the why, of course. Grant, how do we figure that out?
Well, I think it's driving awareness, isn't it? It's taking time to say to yourself, why do I care about making this change?
Yeah.
So let me ask you all now. So hopefully you've highlighted some sort of habit change that you want to implement into your life. Now let me ask you a follow-up question. Why do you care about making that change? What will this new change bring to your life? What will this new habit give you? Why do you care about that change? And that drives that motivation. It blows a bit more wind into your sail because we're understanding the benefits of the change that you're going to implement.
Yeah.
We could reframe that question and say, well, okay, well, what if you stayed the same? What if you decided
Yeah.
not to make any change? What would be the consequences of not making any change or not even attempting the change? Because as long as we're attempting it, the progress mindset that we focus on in our programs, as long as we're attempting change, as long as we're trying something, we're either going to win or learn. We're never going to
Yeah.
lose. So how do we drive connection with our why? We take time to notice. So practicing things like, mindfulness, sitting down, noticing and writing down, what is it that I truly want? Taking a
Yeah.
helicopter view, saying, yeah, okay, well, what is my bigger goal? What is my wonderful vision that I have for myself in the future? And then saying, okay, well, what one little tiny habit do I need to implement that's going to kind of just take me a little step in that direction? It doesn't have to be this massive,
Yeah.
huge change or transformation that often we're encouraged to connect with.
Absolutely.
I'm
And
trying
we
to
all
keep
have
up.
that sense, don't we, that we have to, because I know there's a lot of chat at the moment there in the comments around exercise. And exercise is so important to us, and it's important to me and my why for doing exercise. I do like, feeling strong, but the mental health benefits are amazing to me. You just feel great after a workout, and I have a great bunch of people that I exercise with, and we always have a laugh, and it just gives you so much energy, and it's a brilliant thing to do. But if you hate doing, running or going to the gym or whatever, you,
Yeah.
you don't have to do that, and
No.
then recognizing what actually matters to you can be so
Yeah.
liberating, can't it? And
Yeah.
just finding,
Completely.
somebody mentioned, like dancing or yoga, it can, as long as you're moving and doing something you're enjoying, that's all that matters.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be exercise, right? You don't, and by the way, you don't have to change.
Yeah, that too.
You don't have to,
Yeah.
implement the changes. But however, if I've got goals of achieving this wonderful outcome that I desire, but I'm not willing to change any of my current behaviors that I'm kind of engaging with today, I've got two choices. I either change my outcomes or I change my behaviors.
Yeah.
So, acknowledging and connecting with the reality of the goal and the reality of your journey towards that goal. But it takes me, at this time of year, what are some of the habits that are going to give us a really useful, big, huge bang for my buck at this time of year? One that jumps out to me straight away is just engaging in getting outside a little bit more often in daylight, by the way, because someone said earlier on in the chat, it's darker nights, right, Carin?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that's a big change, isn't it? Especially those of us who like to get up and, get on with exercise and stuff early on, and then the dark mornings just really change that. So that's also, about adapt. I think it's great to adapt to the seasons as well, and live slightly differently and according to where we are. But again, it's reminding ourselves, why we're doing what we're doing, what we need at that particular moment in time. You might notice that you want to eat slightly different and move in different ways, or you might want to just engage in other practices that it doesn't have to be the same throughout the year. You can adapt and see what suits you, and again, that also is quite empowering to give yourself permission to
Yeah,
be the way you want to be. But moving back to getting those habits to stick as well. So we've spoken about the why and the motivation and your mindset, but I also wanted to highlight some really crucial things, which links back to what I was saying before about obviously knowing why you're doing something and making sure that it connects with your values and you're not trying to do somebody else's life. But we've highlighted things about your obstacles and your barriers and things that might get in the way, but also having people that support you and they're on the same journey with you can be so very beneficial, and especially when it comes to things like exercise. A lot of these things can be really hard to do on your own, and sometimes we have to show up for other people and we get the result in the same way, and so it's a win-win situation. But really looking at what sort of capacity do you have to
yeah,
do what you've set yourself out to do? Does it actually fit into your life? Do you have the time? And why does it matter?
yeah. I think you touched on a really important point because then you start to identify, well, what needs to be in place in order for me to feel more ready or motivated to move forward.
Yeah.
If you haven't got a capacity, it's going to be change is going to be very challenging. If you haven't got the opportunity to apply that change, it's going to be very challenging. If you haven't got the equipment or the resources at hand, or even the ability, so I might have a wonderful habit that I want to implement is go for a 3 mile walk twice a week or 3 times a week. But at the moment, I haven't got the ability because I'm injured or I haven't got the time. So
Yeah. And
opportunity,
then it's
ability,
easy to start beating ourselves up about things like that,
exactly,
isn't it?
exactly. And
Yeah.
sometimes, that's the challenge with motivation is that, sometimes we think that motivation lasts a long time, but it doesn't, does it? It's
No.
very, very unreliable. Motivation, willpower, they're unreliable by their nature. So when that motivation wave hits you, ride that wave all the way. I mean, sometimes you wake up and it's like, bring it on. I'm
Yeah.
up for it today. And other days it's like, oh, get someone kick me in the leg. This is just a run uphill. Give me a high five. Does that resonate with everybody? I think we can all
Absolutely.
connect with that, right? So, taking a moment to recognize that motivation comes and goes, and we need to work those natural rhythms and
Mm.
accept, there's going to be moments in my day where engaging in my habit is probably not going to be it's not going to be a useful to even attempt it because I'm just going to set myself
Yeah,
up for failure.
absolutely. Again, that compassion and kindness for yourself. And
Yeah,
again, so important. And I'm loving the supportive nature of the chat function here today. Everybody giving each other hints and tips and sharing their journeys. It's lovely to read through all of them. But yeah, exactly right. Just not being so hard on yourself because it's the same for everybody. Nobody is actually motivated all the time,
no,
even though that might be how you view others and you think, oh, it's just me who can't manage to do
yeah,
whatever it is you set yourself out to do.
yeah. And that's what we see. We see someone that seems to be on the ball all the time, just doing exactly, oh, they're doing an amazing job. I wish, I wonder what they're doing that I'm not doing, or I wonder what I'm
Yeah,
doing that they're not doing, and stuff like that. When you look at them, we go, these people must have wonderful amounts of motivation, wonderful amounts of willpower to do
yeah,
what they do. But actually, that's probably not the case. Actually, what they do, they're self-habituating, they're creating an environment probably when you look closely at their habits and their actions, they create an environment that gives them no choice but to access the
yeah.
wonderful, helpful habits that we notice. So
So
create
what
that
would some of
environment.
those things be? Should we share some top tips?
Yeah, because we could talk about this stuff. Well,
Yeah,
as you probably gathered, I get quite passionate about it. It's quite interesting and fascinating to me. Um,
absolutely.
but I think you touched on a really important point, and I think it's rocket fuel for behavior change, which is accountability. And
Yeah,
there's the self accountability that many of you might use in order to apply the change. I'm going to hold myself accountable, so it's my job to get everything ready to do this, to do that. And then there's group accountability, which is what you touched on, which is what I use actually a
mm,
lot, especially with my exercise. I'm just like everybody. I get so bored. I'm like, oh God, I need some sort of kickstart,
yeah,
and I get that from other people. So I go train with other people, a couple
yeah,
of
me
friends that
too.
I train with and see it almost every other day. So you have that group account, and then there's professional accountability. You can get the guidance and support of a coach or a
Yeah,
trainer or sort of professional or a dietitian or a therapist, whatever it might be, to help you professionally just get back on track and develop that kind of mastery that we want, that where our habit becomes automatic for us.
mm,
So that's going to be key. Planning, I think, is important in terms of the top tip.
yeah,
Um,
definitely.
I think,
For me, it's very, if it's in your calendar, you've
yeah,
already budgeted that time, because it's
yeah,
what you were saying earlier. It's all of these things that we know we should do, but they're just not quite a priority. And if you're anything like me, you will have an ongoing to-do list in your head and just, I'll just keep doing, stuff until somebody stops me. And, I will always find something else, whether it's, work or chores around the house or, looking after other people or whatever it might be. I'm likely to put that first. And you're just never going to have time. So it's also that prioritizing yourself, which can be
yes,
really difficult for so many
yes.
of us.
And that's why I think it's really important to plan, schedule, and complete that. We talk about it a lot in our kind of resilience module, don't we? We talk about the importance of planning, scheduling, and completing self-care activities or flow activities.
Yeah.
Because we push it to the side, right? Because everything else takes, I have to deal with this, I have to firefight over here, I have to
Mm.
cope with this over there.
And it never ends. So
And
you
it
might
never
as
ends,
well
right?
try and
It's just
wedge some in.
perfect,
And for
So,
me, a really good reminder about prioritizing yourself, which can be very difficult for many of us, and especially if we're time poor and you're juggling work and home life and everything. But what really sticks with me is that, when you're happy, when you feel well, when you're in a good place and you're looking after your own needs, you're just a much better colleague, parent, partner. When you're in a good place, everybody else stands to benefit as well.
yeah,
So if you're struggling with that selfishness of taking the time for yourself, then do it for all of those other people that are going to benefit from you showing up being your best self.
yeah, yeah. So, I mean, yeah, absolutely, and getting that support that self kind of discipline to do that, and to reflect on that and develop your own self-awareness is great. And connecting with other people to support that change as well, I think is important. So I guess a couple of questions I have for everybody, perhaps to really embed the understanding of the habit change. One of the key things that jumps into my mind is that question I mentioned earlier on: why do you care about the habit that you want to implement? Why is it important to you? What benefit is it going to bring to you and your life and your friends and your family, and things like that? Very important. So why do you care about the habit change that you want to implement?
Mm.
What will you get from this change that you want to implement? Who will help you support? Who will support you through this change? Is there a person that you need to support you? What equipment or resource, if you had to pick one thing that it would be it could be I don't know, a diary. It could be that you go out and actually buy some new gym kit so you feel better. It could be that what I actually need is some more nutritious food, or better, a healthier, more nutritious food. In my
Buying more gym kit is one thing that I've told myself not to do, actually. They just
Right.
don't get used.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have
My
to
wife,
get out of the house and
yeah,
go and train with somebody who tells me what to do.
yeah. My wife
Otherwise,
constantly
it's gonna
tells me I don't
spread.
need another pair of trainers.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
just wanted to highlight a couple of things that are really important in our comment section. One of them is saying, I try not to change more than one habit at a time, which is excellent advice. When we overwhelm ourselves with, it just becomes very difficult to manage all of it. And the other one comment that is just above that is acknowledging the small wins. So our well-being people, we always, we live by our 1% Proderix experiment, which is just spending, 10 minutes a day focusing on that habit that you want to implement. And when we make the habit so very simple and so easily accessible that you might as well do it. So we set ourselves some really simple, small habits. Then yeah, acknowledging those wins, like you're saying there in the comments, give yourself a good pat on the back, and really celebrate those things. Set yourself up for success. It's so
Yes.
much easier to win the day.
It's so important. It noticing. We're programmed to notice the bad things, right?
Yeah.
We have this negative bias, but it takes a lot of effort actually to pause and notice the good things, and importantly, to perhaps help someone else notice the wonderful changes that they're applying as well. Because if I celebrate the success in you, and I say, "Oh, well done for doing X," you might have just thought that was insignificant and not really that important,
Mm.
unless I brought it to your attention to encourage you to reflect and say, well, actually, it's not perfect, but look how far I've come. I've just tried, and well done for, so, and celebrating success in others, I think is crucial and critical. So yes, connection, social connection, lean on people for support and opportunity, and celebrate their successes as well as your own, definitely.
Yeah. And we know, of course, that we are very much just we're some of our habits, of course, and that's the life we live, but also as some of the people that we surround ourselves with. So the
Yeah.
accountability, is one thing, but make sure that you have accountability from people who are on the same journey, and share those
Yes.
values, or those goals, or whatever it might be, and that actually can have an impact on you. And it's really interesting, isn't it? Because if you want to eat healthier or start running or whatever it might be, if you hang out with people who also want to do that and prioritize that,
Yeah.
it's so much easier than if you're hanging out with people who just want to go to the pub.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
just going to
Again.
be all the difference, because when they all go, do you want to come? And you go, all right, then
Yeah.
I'll go running tomorrow.
Yeah. And again, you, people are better persuaded by the reasons that they've discovered themselves rather than the reasons that have been kind of expressed by others. It's one of my favorite quotes. We're not here to tell you how to change. We're not here to do that. Tap into your own motivations, find a way that works, a small, simple, manageable, accessible change, so that even on those days when you're like, oh my, someone someone throw something at me. There's no waves to ride here at all. Even on those days, you can still access and you can still attempt it. You can still give it a try.
Yeah.
What's going to work better for you? I've launched the poll. Feel free before you escape today to share your thoughts and reflections in your poll, because one really important question that I really encourage you to reflect around is, what one thing will you do to ensure that you engage in your new habit that you've identified? Fabulous.
Loving all the comments, I have
I was
to
just going to say
say
that.
again, like some great thoughts and sharing of your experiences and some very it just made me laugh just now when you said a lot of runners like the pub too. So very, very true. And it's, of course, it's all about finding the right balance. Bit of an extreme example there, but I hope you you got
Right.
what I meant. But yeah, absolutely.
Can I just
There's
add,
space for all of it.
a pub crawl does not count as interval training. Can I just say that? Okay. So that let's just put that out there. Boo, yeah. Right, we're getting an idea of some of the viewers here, aren't we? So, um, Carin, any final words, any last words that you want to share with people that are watching today?
I think some of the, just going back on some of the things that we've talked about that I think is really crucial. For me, it's like your well-being is not a race. Have that kindness and compassion with yourself. Be clear on what matters to you. It's not going to be, the same for everybody. And that's fine. So I think, yeah, just having that compassion and being clear on, why things matter.
Yeah, I think I could agree more, really. I think as well, really connecting with the idea that motivation is unreliable, and
Mm,
that's very natural. That's very normal.
absolutely.
Drive your awareness. As long as we're attempting change, we're going to learn something that works or something that doesn't work, and then we can try something new or something different. So, um,
Definitely. So I've seen you've put on the slide here that you
yeah,
should all be able to see. So yeah, scanning that QR code there to get a little habit reboot. Do you want to tell us a bit about that, Grant?
yeah. I'm just copying it. Actually, I'm going to put it in the chat, and
Hmm.
it should be a link. There we go.
So before you head off, grab yourself that link. Little
Yeah.
reminder to kickstart your habit reboot.
Yeah, and that's it. It's just a little information sheet just to encourage you to implement your habit every day. And it's as simple as, did I complete it today? Will I complete it tomorrow? Did I, and then tomorrow reflecting and doing the same thing, just ticking it off. Whatever it looks like for you, whatever that challenge looks like, whatever that habit change looks like for you, ensure that you give it a try. You know.
Absolutely. Just quickly there on the comment, I just saw somebody asking if this challenge will be available. Just look in the chat just above your comment there. Grant has just posted a link that will take you to that one as well. So please do copy that link and share it with your friends and colleagues. Again, get other people to join in. And I think I'm going to do the same. And it can be a really great reminder. Sometimes when you go back and check and you think, oh, has it been 7 days already
Yeah, yeah.
since I did that last?
I know, I
Um,
know. I think we're running out of time, and I want to leave a
Definitely.
little bit of room just in case people have to jump onto another call or meeting, come up for some movement medicine, come up for some sustenance and hydration. Prioritize you, give yourself permission to enjoy the day and have a lot of fun experimenting with your habit changes, whatever they might be. Whatever they might be. I hope you found today useful and thought-provoking. More importantly, action provoking. So what is it that you're going to do? Because we, remember, can always think a great game, can't we? So
That's
what are you going to, what
the
will you
key element,
do?
isn't it?
Um,
Action. Yes.
Fab, I think what we'll do, we'll kind of wind it up there. As you've probably gathered, we've launched a feedback poll, so please feel free to jump on that before you leave. Get your phones out, as Carin said. You follow the QR code to access this information sheet, or follow the link in the chat. Outside of that, have a happy, healthy, and fun day experimenting with your new habits. See how
Yeah.
you get on.
Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day and for being so wonderful, engaging in the chat function. It's been brilliant reading your
Yeah,
comments as well.
fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's always a real privilege because we get a little bit of an insight, isn't it, Carin? It's
Yeah,
a privilege
yeah.
for us as trainers and coaches. So thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and ideas. You guys were great. Fabulous. Thank you so much, Carin. I think we'll end it there. Enjoy the
Yeah.
rest of your day, everybody, and I'll
See
see
you
you
next
soon.
time. Thanks. Bye-bye.